Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. I always search for the perfect guest to bring to you to inspire you to leap into your own dreams. Well, the woman who we're going to be talking to today, I met when she came on the scene in New York City 19 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long. And over the years, we've had many conversations on many different platforms, including this one. I'm so excited to have her back. She is an influential leader in the fashion industry, someone who says that she's an outsider, but guess what? Today she is surely an insider. She is Brandice Daniel, the CEO and founder of Harlem's Fashion Row. And she created Harlem's Fashion Row as a platform for diversity and innovation. And she's gained recognition from many major corporations and media outlets along her journey. So interestingly, during the pandemic, she founded the not-for-profit Icon 360 that has been instrumental in helping designers stay afloat during the leanest of times. She has authored 4 books, including Sponsored, How to Get Brands to Pay for Your Next Event, Cliff Jump, and Fashion in Color. And the book that we're going to focus on today is A Small Business Big Partnership. We're going to talk all about her career. So please join me as we delve into Brandice's journey from the beginning of her very first fashion show here in New York City to her advocacy for multicultural designers and their impact on the industry. Please welcome Brandice Daniel.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Harriette. Like as I'm listening to you talk, I'm just over here cheesing because it's such an honor to be on this show with you today.
Well, and we have definitely been on this journey. I remember, and I'm sure you do too, Brandice, one time I was working with The Root, and they had this is when online programming was just beginning. I don't know, at least 10 years ago. We were in a closet, it felt like, in The Root offices, but we were there telling the story, making sure people would be inspired and understand. So we found ourselves in many different places.
We have, and I just want to say thank you because early on, you were one of the influential women in my life who really helped to support me. You have to check me at times too. Really was a huge advocate for the work that we do at HFR. And I always say, like, I started out with this amazing, I think, core group of Black women who really held me down. And you were absolutely in that circle. So thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. I have spent many years in the space of fashion, and in particular, supporting designers of color, people of color who want to be in this space, which is what you have devoted your career to. And as you know, we don't always get good advice. And so what you're addressing, I've said to you many times, part of the reason why I have supported you from the beginning is because you were professional from the beginning. And having that attitude and focus of being professional is so important. And we all have to learn.
Right.
And so because you were professional, when I had input, you would listen.
Of course. Who would not listen to Harriette Cole?
Well, my dear, plenty of people don't listen. And listening is a huge part of being successful because there's always something we can learn, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, Brandice, tell us, why did you, as someone from Memphis, Tennessee, come to New York City and decide that you were going to take on the fashion industry and do something hopefully meaningful to support designers of color? Why did you decide to do that?
You know what's interesting is that when I moved from Memphis, that was certainly not my intent at all. My biggest aspiration at the time was I want to work for a luxury brand. That was my goal. Like I didn't even know that the challenges existed for designers of color. And it was, I worked in apparel production, which is the very unglamorous side of fashion, but I'm so happy that I have that experience. Got a chance to travel quite a bit to Asia and meet with our factories and work with them. And was still really searching for kind of my place in this industry, was searching for how I can make some type of an impact. Again, thinking that I would apply for a job at one of the big luxury brands and be just really happy, rising in the ranks there. And it wasn't until I really became so involved in the Harlem kind of scene that was there. Me and my friends used to throw house parties all the time, where we would have like 200 young professionals show up at our home. We would
Nice.
host Harlem brunches where, again, you know, it would be 50, 75 of us at a brunch. And I felt like there was like all of this movement and momentum that was happening in Harlem that I was so excited to feel like I was a part of. And then a friend of mine, Camila, invited me to a fashion show in Brooklyn. And it was there while I was watching that fashion show that I thought, oh, you know what? I should do something like this in Harlem. There was Harlem Week, the fashion week there at Harlem Week. And I'm sure there may have been other things that I didn't know about, but I didn't see my crew at any fashion events. And the people who were coming to our house parties and our brunches, I didn't see them at any fashion events in Harlem. So I thought, oh, I should do something like for the crew that we've kind of developed here. And that was really the goal. And as I started thinking about like who I wanted to be in it, I was at the time volunteering at Biyoyama's, which had like a men's atelier, because I thought I wanted to own a men's boutique. That was my big dream. My
Wow.
big dream.
Biyoyama, just for people who don't know, tell us who he is.
So Biyoyama had a menswear boutique in Harlem. He was one of the first who had like a very upscale boutique.
Yeah.
I believe, I can't remember where he was from, but I feel like he may have been from Nigeria.
So.
But his products were like, I had worked at Brooks Brothers before, and I felt his products, like the quality of them were so good.
It was like Savile Row. It was
so well made. Yeah, it was
men's fashion.
And so I walked in his store one day and said, hey, I want to work here on the weekends. I want to start a menswear boutique. And he said, well, I can't afford to hire you. I said, well, I'll volunteer. And
something I tell people all the time, volunteer like you're being paid $1 million, and one day you may.
It's true. And I showed up to work every single Saturday, like he was paying me. And sometimes he would give me shirts as my payment. But that relationship ended up being so critical, because when I had the idea to do the fashion show in Harlem, he was the first person I asked, and he was the first person to say yes. And not only did he say yes, he tried to help me get the other designers to be a part of it as well.
That's beautiful. Relationships.
Yes.
I mean, hopefully everybody's listening closely, because Brandice is dropping these pearls of wisdom. Volunteer and do an excellent job. Build relationships, because you want to do it anyway, but also know that if you build relationships today, they can benefit you for your whole life.
Absolutely.
And also exactly when you need them to. So you had that first show. What happened?
The first show, we had it at the Riverbank Park in Harlem. It was at a restaurant. We donated all the proceeds to Brotherhood Sister Soul, which is now a huge nonprofit.
Right? Isn't it amazing?
Huge now. At the time, Kari was just kind of starting it as well. And Gems, and we also donated to Gems. And that very first show, I remember there were so many things that were imperfect about it. I mean, the paint on the runway was wet when people got there. People had to wait outside in line. The electricity went out in the back, which was a big problem for hair and makeup. The signs, which I had ordered, didn't fit on the runway at all. I mean, there were so many things that went wrong, but that is still my favorite event I've ever done. Wow. It was a time where I actually saw like an idea that I had, a physical manifestation of an idea. And so it was, for me, honestly, one of the most magical nights of my life, getting to
what
see
made
all
it
of these.
Successful?
I think it was the energy. People came in and they were so excited. A lot of the people who came to that show were like friends of the models. They were we had a opening act where we did like this dance group did this routine of like from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s all the way up. And so it was friends of them. It was people who were just really excited to be there. At the time, there was this cigar shop in Harlem. They had cigar rollers on the patio. All of the clients we had Montgomery, Bioyama, Pieces, and Denim Library. All of their clients were there.
Which were all important Black designers who had establishments in Harlem.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was the energy, it was the models, it was just a lot of fun. And we did have some editors there as well. So Women's Wear Daily actually did like a really small article on it. I remember, I still have that. Style.com actually did like a write-up on it. But I really think what made that night so special was me really seeing this idea come to life and having the people in the room be just as excited about it as I was.
And a lot of times you have an idea, you do that first thing, it's expensive. I mean, even as lucky as you were to also have coverage from major media, WWD and style.com, but still being able to do it again, being able to grow it. So I know you started out being in different venues in Harlem, and then you got to Lincoln Center kind of fast. How did you grow? And was there, I mean, I know now you've got so much planning for growth, and we'll talk about your book that really helps others to understand it. But was there a plan for this growth that happened so quickly? And also, when the money wasn't there, especially in the early days, how did you believe and keep moving forward when maybe, your pockets were dry?
Oh my gosh, my pockets were dry the whole time. They were dry the whole time. The very first year, I will say I still had worked my job. So I used what I made from my job to produce that first show. And I actually got an offer for a sponsorship on the first show that I ended up turning down. It was for $3,000. And hardest money I think I have ever turned down. I turned down one more big sum of money in like 6 years later, but that was really hard to turn down. But in my mind, I can't explain it. I always kind of saw where Harlem's Fashion Row was going, and it was a beer brand, and they wanted to basically build out a whole runway with this beer logo everywhere. And I mean, that was the hardest email I've ever sent, because I basically begged this guy at this magazine to support it. He brings on a sponsor who wants to give me $3,000. And I end up telling him, I'm so sorry, but that I can't actually take the sponsorship. And
now I just have to interject for folks who are listening. Some deals are not good deals if they don't align with your brand. That's what Brandice is saying. It's too expensive of a compromise, even if you need the money.
And I needed the money. Let's just be clear. I needed the money. And so that was really hard, but it also taught me kind of, okay, brands will want to pay you for this. So that was a big lesson. The second year, again, very hard. I actually called my dad, who is like the cheapest man in America, and told him what I was dealing with. And he ended up sending me some money for that second show, because we didn't have any sponsor for that. And I didn't know how I was going to pay it. So one of the things that I've done, thinking of dream leaping, is a lot of times I've kind of gone with a dream and not thought about like how I'm going to make it happen. I did that year too. The third year we did it, Target came on as our first sponsor, but they didn't have their logo on anything. That was at the Studio Museum. And again, all of these things are teaching me, okay, brands will pay. Fourth year, I go and look at Jazz at Lincoln Center. Don't even ask me why I even go to look at that venue, because there was nothing in my situation that said we could do it then at Jazz at Lincoln Center. But when I looked at the space, I cannot explain it, Harriette, but I knew. I was like, this is where our next show is going to be. I don't know how this is going to happen, but I had enough to put down a deposit, and that was it. And that deposit was probably 5% of what the total amount would be. And Target ended up, through a very long story, coming on board to that show. It took a lot of persistence. I mean, I sent a cake to the agency. I must have sent them like 4 or 5 packages, so they wouldn't forget me and would
Right,
consider
exactly, so
me.
they will remember you. Hey,
Yeah.
guys, let me just remind folks, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We are having a delightful conversation with Brandice Henderson Daniel, the creator of Harlem's Fashion Row. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank
And
you.
and I and I love this, so you get to I was at that show,
You
uh,
were.
at many, many, many of your shows, but including that first one at Lincoln Center. So just for people to understand, right or wrong, good or bad, many Black designers do not have the opportunity to showcase their work in spaces that are like Lincoln Center. There's often a budgetary challenge. Part of the reason you do this is that you bring these designers together and you
Yeah,
provide the platform for them to show their work.
yeah.
Why is it important for you to give these designers that platform? And what did it mean in terms of leveraging them to show their work at Lincoln Center?
I always say that, I tell my team this all the time. When it comes to designers, like, I consider HFR the frame, and the frame has to be right, right? You get a package in a very terrible looking frame, and you're not excited about it. Or if you get a gift in a paper bag, you're not that excited about it. But if you get a gift that's like wrapped really well and it has a beautiful bow on it, and or beautiful frame, then it allows you to actually appreciate the gift that much more. And so Jazz at Lincoln Center for us was, this is the frame that Black designers should be presented in. This is what they deserve. This is how I feel they should be presented. And that was, again, just a big jump for us and a big leap for us. But I felt like it was one that was really necessary. And we still think about that with everything we do, the venue, how it's presented. We're the frame. And so we have to make sure that I want designers to be proud of being aligned with us. And I don't know if I answered your question, Harriet.
That was a good answer, though. Have you ever run into, and I just can't call it anything else, but racism? I know, as a fashion editor for many years, representing a Black audience,
Yeah.
a lot of times there is not the belief that Black people buy fashion. There certainly isn't the belief that there really are viable Black fashion designers. Have you faced racism? And if so, how have you reacted to that?
So the quick answer is yes, I'm sure that I have. I am a delusional optimist. And so I think because of that, I grew up in Memphis, right? There's so much racism in Memphis. I grew up with it my whole life. And I watched my dad navigate through our city in a way that he just, honestly, he didn't get upset about hardly anything. And people would tell him no. People would say all kind of like crazy things to my dad because he was always selling something. My dad was a salesperson. And his response would always be as if they never said no. Like he did not treat rejection or anything like that as something to be looked at seriously. And so I think I kind of got that from him, where, I mean, there's lots of rejection that I've gotten over time. Especially like in the beginning, we used to send out invites every year to the same editors, and they never showed up. Like, never showed up. And I would just say, well, just keep sending them the invite, just keep sending it. And so I think because of that, I have this philosophy, and I tell my daughter this all the time, like, what you think and what you say becomes what you expect. And then you usually get what you expect. So I kind of walked into this knowing that I was an outsider, knowing that I didn't have the relationships, that, I would have to reintroduce myself to people like 15 times. But I approached it like, all these people want to support Harlem's fashion round, whether they did or they didn't. That was the story I decided to tell myself. And anytime I even spoke about the fashion industry out loud, I would always say, we have so much support. We have so much love. And it was really a way of kind of psyching myself out so that I could start to expect that. And then that thing could started to come.
That's beautiful. And one of the things that I appreciate about Harlem's Fashion Row is you weren't just and aren't just putting designers and models on the runway and saying, okay, here's a show, you do well or you don't. You've always had the philosophy, I want to help these designers to be viable businesses and to learn how to run a business and to find ways to get to retailers who will sell the clothing. From the very beginning, you had that vision of full support for these designers so that they could win. And over the years, there have been so many interesting things that you have done, including as the collab became a thing, you were right there. I mean, the first collab that I remember that you did with HFR was with Nike and LeBron James.
That was our first collaboration.
I mean, look, first of all, I know because I've talked to you behind the scenes, lean times have prevailed, like for most of us. And then here's this huge event with LeBron James and three of your designers who I know because I've known them over time, who've been at it, but also struggling to make it work, are designing shoes for LeBron James that sold out in a blink.
Yeah.
What has the collaboration meant for HFR and the designers that you work with?
That collaboration in particular, and I'm going to talk about collaborations in general, but that collaboration, honestly, I feel like that was my sign from God because I had just in 2017, it was my 10th year. I'm getting emotional just about to talk about it right now. I feel like the tears coming. It was so hard. Everything about that event was hard. Not only did I not have the money, like I spent money I didn't have on that event. And so I literally was like, I thought that this was what I was supposed to do. Maybe it's not what I'm supposed to do. I need a sign that I'm supposed to keep going because it was just it's one thing when it's hard for me. It's another thing when I put my family in jeopardy, and my husband had been so supportive. I had like a 2-year-old baby, and it just all felt like I can't keep doing this. So that collaboration just came at such a moment where it was like my God nod. My friend always says that, okay, you're on the right track, keep going. But that opened us up to understanding how to do a collaboration because I didn't know what I was doing, quite frankly. I was winging it. It also, I think, opened so many brands up to go, oh, wait, we can do a collaboration with HFR and this is what it could look like. And since then, we've done, I think we've done about 8 other collaborations since then. Janie and Jack.
A huge one that just happened with HSN.
Yes.
I mean, huge.
That was so huge. We did HSN. We've done Amazon. We did one with Abercrombie and Fitch in the fall. So we've done lots of them. But what I love so much about collabs is that for the designer, it allows them to get paid a fee for their creativity and their services without the heavy lift of figuring out like where I'm going to produce it, paying for the fabrics. Like they literally get to kind of come in as like the creative director. And then if the deal is done right, they also get royalty on the back end of that. And so that model for us has worked incredibly well for the designers. And that's a place where I really want us to kind of focus and do more of because I feel like it solves so many issues.
And the hope and the proof that it can work is so important. And that's one of the things that HFR has done. Again, I cannot say enough how, because I work with so many designers over the years, people have great ideas. The great ideas are the most plentiful. Turning that great idea into something that can come to market and be sustained in the market is a completely different thing, which is why with Dreamleapers, I'm always telling people, yes, you have to access that dream, but the work to put it into play and to make it last and grow, that's a whole nother thing. And I feel like, and I wonder if they tell you this, like HFR is almost like fairy godmother to some folk, because you are there and therefore they're not alone. And you, all the expertise that you've been building and growing over the years, you pour into them. What do they say?
They said a lot of things, Harriet. I that's what I'm not great at, is taking that on. I honestly feel like I'm a vessel, and for me, it is. I mean, even the fact that I'm shocked every day that I'm the one doing this every day, and I don't know. Like, they say lots of things. Yes, I've been definitely called a fairy godmom,
I
but it's the to decide to look at the facts, know that all the odds are stacked against you
Yeah.
as a designer, period, and specifically as a designer of color, and still decide to move forward. And those that move forward in excellence, where their website looks great, their social looks great, their product is amazing, the quality is great. I have so much admiration for them because I know what it takes as an entrepreneur to make something like that happen. So I don't know. I love working with the designers that we work with.
And one of the things that you've done with your shows, well, you didn't try to make it exactly like what a Seventh Avenue show
No.
is. There is a bit of theatricality, which people in the Black community love.
Yes.
You have the emerging designers, plus always at least one veteran designer who they can look up to and that you are honoring, who may not have been honored that much. Plus, leaders in the industry are celebrated at your events. Why all of them?
It's an experience. People can go to New York Fashion. I always say, like, don't plan on coming to HFR show, staying 30 minutes and leaving, right? That's like typical New York Fashion Week. This is going to be an event, an experience, and you're going to leave, and you're going to leave having felt something. Our last show, like, my dream was to have Dougie Fresh close the show because it was the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And that was a surprise for everyone. But I think it's important that IMG New York Fashion Week. Like, I've never tried to do that. Like, my goal is, like, how do I create something that really represents our culture? And our culture is lively. A look might come down a runway and people are screaming and shouting and clapping. And that's not something that usually happens at a typical runway show. I also thought it was really.
And I didn't realize I was on mute. And that was at the Apollo.
Yes.
So the venues that you've been in, for you to have that tribute to hip hop with Dougie Fresh at the Apollo meant a lot.
It meant so much, and for him to say yes meant a whole lot to me, right? Too. I am committed to doing our Fashion Week events in Harlem, and it's not easy because there's not a lot of venues in Harlem, and now the Apollo is renovating. But I feel like there's a responsibility when you name your company Harlem's Fashion Row. There's a responsibility to the community of Harlem, and I feel that deeply. So I'm excited. Like, the year we did the show on the street, people came out their doors and they sat on their stoops and watched a fashion show. Like, that was honestly one of my favorite moments as well. Being able to do a show at Grant's Tomb, which I had dreamt of doing a show at Grant's Tomb. Like, I remember that as a dream for me. That was huge for me. And so, I don't know, it's just, I think one day I'll sit back and look at all of this. Right now, I'm too in it to really appreciate it. But I don't know. I'm still having fun with the Harriette.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole, and we are talking to Brandice Daniel. She is the CEO of Harlem's Fashion Row. She's written a bunch of books, but we're about to talk about this book that she has written. It's a workbook that's chock full of information for you if you are an entrepreneur of any kind. Truly, it is called Small Business Big Partnership. Yes. Brandice has worked for so long figuring out how you can get the dollars you need in order to make your dreams come true. And she very generously has poured it into this book. So thank you for that, Brandice.
No problem.
I want to talk about that, and I also want to talk about Icon 360. So let's start with your book. Uh, as an entrepreneur myself, I know there's no lack of creative ideas. People are not necessarily good at everything. And
Right.
okay, here are the ideas. How do I get this company to support these ideas? That is often a challenge that shuts the door before it's even open. What made you decide to write this book, and what are some of the key points that you want people to learn when they read it?
The main reason I wrote this book is a book I wish I had.
Mhm.
I spent years doing sponsorship decks, pitching brands the wrong way, um, trying to figure out how I could get brands to partner with us. I mean, years of doing it wrong. And I just wasted so much time, quite frankly, because there was no one who would share this information. It was usually like, this is information that like marketing agencies have, but they're not going to share. They're not going to put that out there. And I thought, you know what? If I ever figure this out, I'm going to write a book on it, on how do you get it done. And so that was the main reason I wrote it, because it's not as complicated as people think it is. And I was like, if I can kind of like give people the shortcut on how to get there, that also gives them a shortcut to like scale their dreams a lot faster. I mean, even nonprofits, I had somebody who texted me, she's gotten $60,000 in the last 6 months from everything she got from my book. So she
Wow.
spent $20 or whatever the book is, and she got $60,000. And she's like, I just followed what you said in the book and it worked. So, so it's like, how do I take these big ideas and like simplify them so that anybody who has a business can figure out like how to partner with brands, whether it's local brands in their city or whether it's like brands on a national scale.
And I'm looking at chapter 7 right now, which is what can your business offer a brand? And
Mhm.
why I want to point that out for a moment, Brandis, is a lot of times people think of themselves. I'm so great. If it's a fashion designer, my clothes are so beautiful. But whatever your product is,
Yep.
or if it's you or you plus something else, people make the mistake
Yeah.
of pumping themselves up, making themselves seem so fabulous, especially when they are nervous about pitching to a company, talking way too much. And you write about that in detail in your book. You have to serve their need. The only way you're going to get some money is if you figure out that what you have will solve for the need that they have. And can you talk about that and what you think people can do to answer that question? What can your business offer a brand?
Yeah. So one of the biggest mistakes people make in brand partnerships and pitching them is they are so busy pitching themselves and how great they are, assuming that the person on the other end cares, and they don't. And so all they care about is how is what you're going to do going to help them meet their goals. That's it. Like that is, and if you figure that out, then it's a lot easier to get brand partnership. So, I always say like, you never have a brand. If you got 30 minutes for a partnership call, you don't want to talk for 25 minutes. You want to make sure
Although
you're
plenty of people make that mistake.
most people make that mistake. I mean, my team has made that mistake. Like I've had to say to my team, hey guys, we had 30 minutes for this call. You guys talked 25 minutes and you only gave them 5 minutes. We never really heard from them. So it's something that I think a lot of people, because you are nervous and you're trying to get all this information out there. But the most important thing you can get when you're on that call is what's their objective? What are the things they're working on right now? What are some of the problems that maybe what you do can help solve? So you really, through partnerships, hopefully you're becoming a solution to their problem through your partnership.
Well, and I think humility has a lot to do with that. I think that's
Mhm.
probably why you're successful, because you're not pumping yourself up. How do people who are nervous get past that? Because I think ego often shines itself when you're nervous. Then you
Yeah.
try to make yourself seem bigger and better than you can. How can people stay grounded so that they can do what you just described?
You have to remember that you're not pitching a brand. That's another thing. You are pitching a human. And I think when you realize, oh, I'm pitching a human, not a brand, that makes a big difference. And guess what? That human got challenges just like you. They got to pick their daughter up from daycare. Their daughter might be at home sick with them. They might be taking care of a parent. They might be frustrated because they really want a promotion at work. They are a human. And when you approach that call, like, approach it from that perspective, and it helps ground everything.
Mhm.
I've gotten on a call with a brand, and I remember a woman was like, oh, my baby was sick. I just had to get her from daycare. And I said, let's not do this call, because I know what that's like as a
Right.
mom and your child is over there sick. I was like, we can do this another time. And she's like, no, 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 let's get it done. I was like, I promise. So I think it's like being cognizant and having empathy for the person that's on the other end, and really respecting them as a person, and then also respecting their time. So if you're on the call and you're talking the whole time, it's telling them you don't care what they have going on. You don't care what their objectives are, how you can help them. And so at some point during that call, you need to say, hey, what are your main objectives right now? What are you guys working on? Because I would like to see if there's anything that we're doing that could potentially fit your objective. The moment you say that, the person on the other line is like, oh, like it's a different situation then,
Right.
because now they know you're not pitching them, but you're trying to solve something for them.
I love that. When people, you mentioned someone who's used the book and already gotten 60,000 in sponsorships. Uh, what is your hope for anyone who does read this book? How tangibly can they use it, and what kind of results? I mean, obviously you're not telling people, I'll make sure you get X number of dollars, but what do you hope they will gain from working with this book?
I hope everybody who reads this book at a minimum gets $5,000 in sponsorship.
All right.
Like, at a minimum, if you follow this book and you're actually like tenacious about the process, you should be able to get $5,000 in sponsorship. But the other goal is that there's so many things in there that I think even goes beyond partnerships, that I think people can use for their businesses on
Yeah.
how they approach anything where they're kind of pitching. So I hope people read this and think about the fact that you don't have to go at this alone. Like, there are
Right.
brands and people who want to partner with you, but the way that you approach that partnership is going to be critical in terms of if it's confirmed or not.
Yeah, and I like that you give the base of 5,000, and from reading it, I can see you can also have the vision that it's gonna be 100,000 or 1,000,000, or, what is your vision? Apply your vision, your big vision for yourself to the principles that Brandice has put in this book, and I think you'll be surprised at what that will yield if you take it seriously. You gotta take it
Absolutely.
seriously. Hey guys, we are taking it seriously here on Dreamleapers. We're talking to Brandice Henderson Daniel. She is the CEO of Harlem's Fashion Row. She has written 4 books thus far. The one we've been talking about is Small Business Big Partnership. And by the way, one of the things that she talks about in this book is it doesn't matter how small you are. Big businesses benefit from working with really small businesses. So all of those things that sometimes stand in our way of thinking we're too small, we're too this, we're too whatever, let that go.
Yeah.
Own the fullness of who you are and then see what comes from that. That
Yeah.
I think is really powerful. Brandice, I want to talk about something else you did recently based on a dream, because I heard you talk about it at an event recently, but also based on your understanding of how people were suffering.
Mm.
So during the pandemic, people will probably remember, everything shut down, people were not going out. One of the industries that crashed was fashion, because why would you buy a bunch of clothes if you're not going anywhere?
Right.
All you see is your head to shoulders, if you are fortunate enough to be working and have to be on Zoom or one of these other video chats, the fashion industry plummeted.
Mhm.
And, already it was tough for designers of color. You decided to do something about that and got really creative. What did you do and what happened?
So at the end of 2019, I did a decade planning party with my family and anybody else who wanted to come to my mom's kitchen table. And I said, let's plan out our decade. Let's like write an email to ourselves from 2030 about like what we've accomplished over the decade. And so part of my plan for the decade was that I was going to start a nonprofit. And I've always wanted to start a nonprofit. But I thought, 5 years into the decade, I would do this nonprofit. The pandemic happened and I was speaking to amazing designers who were saying to me, Brandice, I don't think I can keep my business open. Like I went from making, $10,000 a week to nothing. And I kept having the conversations. I was calling, checking in on designers. How are you doing? And I kept hearing the same conversation. I don't think I'm going to make it. I don't think we're going to be able to survive. And one day I'm walking around my mom's neighborhood and I clearly hear that I'm supposed to start a nonprofit now. And the amount that I would raise for it. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to do a virtual event. We're going to do a virtual event. We're going to raise this money. I just need to sell 20,000. I think it was 30,000 tickets or something like that at $20 each. And we're going to raise $1 million and we're going to give it to designers. And so I started to ask all of these people to be a part of this virtual event. And we figured it out how to do it. I had never done a virtual event before in my life, but we figured it out, found a platform.
Let me jump in and say, we do virtual events every second now. And so it's nothing. Everybody pretty much knows how to do a virtual event. Back then, we didn't know how to do what we're doing right now. This was new technology that was kind of scary. What's going to happen? Will it keep working? So you were pioneering, like many of us during that period when this that we take for granted was new.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing, Harriette. I had met this young lady, Kathleen, like a couple months prior. And after I decided, okay, we're going to do a virtual event, Kathleen actually emailed me and said, hey, is there anything I can help you with on a tech front? And I said, yes. And so she ended up really helping us. She and I worked hand in hand to put this virtual event together. And so we pre-recorded all of the conversations. We realized that was going to be the easiest way for us to manage it.
Right.
And so we had stylists and editors and influencers and designers and all kind of people be a part of this event to raise money. And maybe, I think it was 4 or 5 days before the event was to air was the murder of George Floyd. And I struggled because I was like, how do I do this fashion thing, virtual thing now? Like it just felt so unimportant, honestly, in the grand scheme of what we were all feeling in that moment. And I remember I finally went to sleep one night and I was like, I know this has happened and we're all like hurting so bad, but the designers still need help. And so we decided to do it. I started that event with like a moment of silence. And I told people like this was hard for me to really decide. I mean, I remember going live, I think on my Instagram, literally in tears, saying that to people and letting people know that everyone had pre-recorded the conversations because I also didn't want them to get any flack for it. But that event, we sold 1,000 tickets to that event, which now I realize is a big freaking deal.
Heck yeah.
But Harriette, I wanted to sell 30,000.
30,000, right. So it was and it wasn't.
So I was like, how am I going to? So I was like, well, whatever we raise, like we'll give that out. And so we did. And then after that.
And you gave this to
3 designers.
Okay.
So we raised about $20,000. We split it up. We gave it to 3 different designers.
So and they could stay afloat.
So they could stay afloat. And then I got a phone call one day from Stephen Kolb. And like I looked at my phone and I mean, we have a great relationship, but like
tell folks who he is.
Stephen Kolb is the CEO of the CFDA.
And the CFDA is the Council of Fashion Designers of America. which is the umbrella organization that kind of brings all the fashion designers together and very rarely has Black representation or representation of color, period.
Yes. So he called and the first thing he says, "How you doing?" And I was like, "Not great," because it was like right after George Floyd, and we talked
Yeah.
and we had a really just great conversation. And that was when he said, we've launched this new fund called the Common Thread. We were gonna do our Vogue fashion fund. We canceled it, and so we've got these funds that we were going to give out at that, and we've given out so much funds from our end, but we also have this $1 million, and we were thinking that we looked at what you've been doing with Icon 360, and we thought maybe Anna and I thought maybe we should donate that to
And
Icon.
Anna, as in Anna Wintour,
Anna
the
as an Anna
editorial director of Condé Nast Publications, just and Vogue Plus.
Yes.
Because not everybody who's tuned in knows, they may not know Anna by her first name. So go ahead.
Okay, so Anna Wintour. And so I said, okay. And we honestly at that moment, we didn't even have like our EIN number, like all the things that you need to be, a 501c3, like that certificate, like that stuff takes time. And
Yes.
we launched this, I think, in like May of 2020.
It takes months.
It takes months. But
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I was honest. I said, Stephen, yes, we want this. And I know we can do a great job in distributing these funds, but there are some things that I'm still waiting for, like our EIN. And he said, okay, when you have it, just send it to me. And they actually waited on us to get that information together.
Give you $1 million.
Yes.
And so
he could have said like, oh, we were looking for somebody who already had their things up
right.
and running. We didn't.
Since that time, Brandice, how many designers have you been able to support through Icon 360, which is your not-for-profit?
We've been able to support about 50 designers financially. We've been able to give, awards. The highest award we've been able to give is $100,000 to, $50,000 grants. We just gave away a $30,000 grant in February to a designer through a partnership with Paramount Pictures for the Bob Marley One Love film.
Yes.
So it's been incredible, honestly, to be able to kind of, again, see this vision manifested and these designers be able to get this funding that they really needed. And we also, through the nonprofit, support HBCU fashion departments. And so a lot of these departments are just in dire need of everything from mannequins to computers to equipment to like everything. And Gap actually donated $500,000 2 years in a row. So $1 million in total to HBCU fashion schools, which a lot of them had never gotten funding before. So we've been able to give, I think we're close to like 1.5 million that we've been able to fund for the HBCU fashion departments.
Congratulations, first of all. And
Thank you.
And also it's really wonderful to hear that it's continuing. A lot of the generosity that was sparked post George Floyd has dried up.
Yep.
And so it's good to know, well, you were doing your work way before, but also that partnerships are continuing. How can people apply for this support and also learn more about both Icon 360 and Harlem's Fashion Row?
You can go to harlemsfashionrow.com for all information about HFR. And then Icon 360 is hfricon360.com. And on there, like, if you're a designer, if you're HBCU department, we actually have an HBCU professor summit that we do that's coming up through Icon 360 to really make sure that the professors are preparing the students to work in this industry. That's coming up. So if you're an HBCU professor, please reach out to us. That's happening around Juneteenth.
Wonderful. Well, Brandice, as always, it is delightful to talk to you. Congratulations on all that you do. And thank you for your generosity in sharing so much of it with us. We appreciate you.
Harriette, I appreciate you. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for championing not just me, so many others as well. Like um, you are someone who we can always count on to be honest with us, to show up. Harriet shows up, y'all. Harriet is going to show up, and you are always willing to offer your wisdom. And for that, I am so, so, so grateful for.
Well, see, it's mutual. Thank you so much. And
Thank
thank
you.
you to all of you for tuning into Dream Leapers. You need to get a copy of Brandice's book, Brandice Daniel. Look out for her, all the great work she's doing. And until next time, have a great day and make it count.